Elias, thank you for joining us. Where are you now, and what have you been up to lately?
Oh, right now I'm in my sound booth here at my home in LA, and my day today was already getting breakfast made and driving my two kids to school and setting this up. And then I have a voice directing job for Fortnite in a little bit.
Amazing.
That's
amazing. When did you move to LA? When I first met you, it was eons ago. It feels like now, pre-pandemic in Toronto. And
I was in Toronto when we met first. Yeah. I moved here back and forth for a while in 2018, 2019.
Right.
And then I settled because I had no choice during COVID. And then I was just, I just got my citizenship. And it's been 7 years since I moved from Canada, but it didn't feel like I moved for a couple of years. You know what I mean? It was always going back and forth. And now I'm pretty much.
We were like two ships in the night, I think, because I left Los Angeles in 2019, came back to Toronto, but I was there for a few years and I never know when I began because there was so much, moving to another country is not easy.
Not easy.
Yeah. So.
And then and it's funny because you think I leave Toronto, the most expensive city in Canada, and then I get here and it's the most expensive city in America. Can't really win.
It seems like there's a lot of commonalities between the two. I don't mean to drag you all the way back into the past here, but you seem like you have so many irons in the fire right now and doing so many different things. Is there something you're doing today that you didn't picture yourself doing, 10 years ago?
Good question. I think when you set out to be an actor, you kind of just want to do acting. I've always been interested in directing and writing and all this kind of stuff, but it's always was my people would call me, my friend Carrie always said to me, she's like, you were no plan B Elias. That's what she called me. She's like, you had no plan B, it was always acting. And that's true, but for good or bad, that's true. And so I was always just like, okay, I'm just going to make it as an actor. And what you realize is that making it is kind of it depends on how you want to quantify that. Mm-hmm. It's I make a living as an actor, most definitely, but it's not to the point where I don't have to work on anymore. You know what I mean? It's not to the point where I don't have to audition anymore. Or I don't have to where it's I made $6 million last year. I'm good. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
For 99% of the actors, it's I was just on Star Trek. Okay, what's next? Because I have to pay my bills. Star Trek paid for this much up until here. It's contract work. So what I realized, especially living here, is it's so expensive to live here, and in Toronto too. And then you have kids and you have life and you have all this stuff, and you start going, all right, if I'm gonna just pay my bills off of what I'm making as an actor, it's gonna be difficult.
Right.
Sometimes it's great. But then other times when it valleys, the peaks are great, but when it valleys because it's so expensive. So I thought, okay, well, I need to bring in more money, and I'm not going to do, I'm in the business. I'm making enough money as an actor, so I'm not going to go and say, well, I'm going to go bartender. I'm going to go get some other job outside of the, I never needed to do that, thank goodness. But I did need to diversify.
Mm-hmm.
It was diversify. And I always loved writing, so I started with a couple of friends of mine. We started writing these animated series and stuff, and then I sold one. We had managed to sell one through connections I had with acting and producers and stuff like that. And then we're doing another one of those, and then there's movies that I was writing, and then it was voice directing, which ended up, just because I've had 20 years of experience in working in video games, that it got to the point where I'm like, well, look, I know how games work. I know what they need from actors. I'm an actor. I know how to get stuff out of actors. I've been coaching actors forever. Everybody calls me when they have a performance capture audition or a video game audition. People that barely know me will give me a call going, what do I have to do? So I go, well, why don't I use all this and make a little bit more money and do something that involves directing in video games? And that kind of opened up that book for me. And then I started directing, voice directing in the live picture directing in a lot of. And then what ended up happening is just things snowball, right?
Yeah.
Companies call you and go, I want you for this, or can you have time for this? Come in. And then you end up going, I'm working on Fortnite today and then Marathon tomorrow. And then, whatever's next. And hopefully that continues forever. I don't really intend to retire.
Yeah. Well, I think I share a similar headspace. I can't picture it at this point. I think I'm too excited by all of it. And, Is there a particular like project or role that you talk about that snowballing and I assume that it all starts to flow and build momentum, but was there any sort of like scaler for that? Was it something like the Expanse or what? Is there a big project?
Question. I mean, not really. Like I always want people to think of actors as like contract workers, like roofers, or like you start going like, well, I need work, so here's what I do, guys, and then you hope people hire you based on that. And then you get this job and you get this job. Some jobs are better than others. Some jobs lead to other things, but then some jobs don't. Like I did Star Trek. I'm the main bad guy on Star Trek for a whole year. It just comes out last year, and it hasn't really led to like other jobs.
Right.
I still have to hustle and get everything out there. So it's just contract work. It's contract work. So there's nothing really. I can't say there's anything really that has like opened up a path that made me have to like able to sit back. It's still. I got to hustle for this. I got to hustle for this. I got to hustle for this. It's never ending hustle in this business for anybody really in the business because it's contract work.
Yeah. But it kind of always seems like the road is longer for the people that are like jack of all trades, master of none, because I hate that phrase in some ways because I think it's possible to actually become a bit of a master in all of those things. But that's why the road is so long. Has there been a project where you've been able to flex kind of all of your trades, if you will, into one?
Not yet, because everything is all mixed up. I mean, maybe, like I love there's this big game that we're still working on. We're going to be working on forever. It's Marathon, Bungie's new big game.
Amazing.
And I'm the voice director of that game, but I'm also like one of the lead actors in the game. So I love that.
Yeah,
where it's like, well, not only do I get to promote that I directed this game, but I hope everybody likes this character I play in it. And I don't really direct myself, so to speak, when it's my turn. It's kind of the producers are there, and then we talk about performance and stuff like that. So for all intents and purposes, I do direct myself, kind of.
Yeah,
but I love when that stuff happens. Or like there's an animated series that me and a couple other people created that I'm going to be acting in and voice directing and all that. That all comes together. But it's pretty rare. Most of the time, like this company's hiring me for directing, this company's hiring me for acting.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like I always wanted, like I said at the beginning, it's like I always was, it was, my one path was just be an actor. And then you get the years like where I did like The Expanse or Star Trek, and I also did, when I did Star Trek, I was doing Starfield, with a big Bethesda game, directing and acting in that at the same time, and it was great. But then Star Trek goes away, and you're like, okay, now I need to continue to pay bills, and so you start going like, oh, all right, well, I can't take this acting role because it's not going to pay me enough. So, but this pays me more, and it's a very weird thing where you're like, well, I got to turn down that role because it pays me X amount of dollars, and I'm going to lose directing this game, which pays me more. It's like, it's a weird thing.
How often do you feel like you're away from your home studio, or are you able to leverage your home studio a lot? And
here's a bit of a weird thing is that last year it was over the last 2 years, but I had kind of the best year of my career, right? Where I was in Star Trek and I was in Starfield and I was directing Fortnite and I'm doing all these things, and you realize that it didn't matter where on earth I was. Star Trek was going to fly me to where they were shooting, no matter what.
Yep.
And I have a sound booth to do all the rest of the stuff. So why am I living in the most expensive city in the, you know what I mean? Like that, those are the kind of things that you start thinking where I'm like, I could be living in, somewhere in New Mexico for $100 a month to live there.
Exactly.
And do everything I'm doing now. So the traveling is, I traveled a lot last year for Comic-Cons, for Star Trek cons.
Yeah.
Because my character had just premiered, so they wanted to really put me out there. And so I went to something like 14 cities last year. But those are mostly, they're mostly a burden on me being tired. They're not really just go for a weekend, it's not a huge
long sprints or anything.
Not a long sprint, yeah. Well, when I shot Star Trek, I was gone for months.
Right.
Up in Toronto, where we shoot Star Trek. Yeah.
Pinewood, right?
Yeah. Pinewood and a place in I'm forgetting the name of the near, like just past North York.
Oh,
Brampton.
yeah.
It was Brampton. Yeah. Yeah. They have that great studio there that kind of the, I don't know what they call it, the holodeck in Star Trek, but it's the one with all the screens surround you. The volume.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Although
awesome.
that might be the Lucasfilm's branded name of it. I feel like that everyone is.
Yeah, we just called it the holodeck.
Holodeck's awesome.
Yeah. But it was, it's pretty great. But it's not Luke. It's like they just got people who knew how to do what Lucasfilm had already done.
Yep, exactly.
They built it. Yeah, it's really cool.
What's it like performing in one of those?
It's really interesting because they actually, what's fascinating about it is, so all these screens are there. So you think, okay, it's just rear projection for the most part, but it's not, because they're programmed in a way that if the camera moves, the background moves with the camera.
Yep.
So if I'm staring at you in a scene and the camera behind me is moving, what I'm seeing behind you is moving, if you follow what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually interviewed someone earlier who's one of the engineers for dealing with all that stuff, and he was showing us how. But yeah,
so it almost makes you sick.
Yeah.
Where you're like, why am I moving? And they're handing out like Dramamine to some actors who can't take because it's really big, and it's great though, because it does legitimately put you in the space, right? That's the one thing, green screen, video games, things like that. Like I do, as you know, I've done a ton of performance capture. Yeah. And when I'm on that stage, you're like, you see tape on the floor. You're like, that's where a table is. Don't walk over that. That's where this is. Don't walk through that. But on the volume, you see everything.
Right.
So you're like, well, that's how far, like, it looks like I'm in space, or it looks like I'm on a planet, or it's great.
I can't imagine what set deck that team is like. Their world seems like it would be totally different with something like a volume.
And they have to work so hard, because you have to, like, on the one that I was doing, it was on the bridge of not the bridge, but this like a storage, anyway, it doesn't matter. But like where they would come in and dock the dock of this giant
docking
ship,
bay.
Right? Yeah, docking bay. That's the word I'm looking for. And so they had all these kind of like storage bins that were like futuristic alien storage bins, but those went on into the volume. So whoever is designing those sets had to work with whoever's designing the volume to make them the exact same size, exact same look, to make it look like this physical one is right over there, but it's a digital one.
Wild. Yeah, there's so much movie magic happening
it's
now.
Incredible. It really is. It's probably not cheap to make, but I would imagine it's not that expensive to film once it's made.
Well, yeah, it's probably I imagine it edges out slightly cheaper than flying a crew to Tunisia for something like Star Wars, and bringing all that gear and everything. So
yeah.
It's pretty wild. I'm definitely I can see as an audience member the difference in the. It seems like actors, like if I even just using Star Wars as a lens for something, like it's you can see the actors enjoying their experience and in the performance more, having something rather than just a green wall behind them, and assume that you're in somewhere fantastic,
Yeah.
So
and it's much more difficult in post, I would imagine. I'm not a post guy, but I would imagine it's post VFX off a green screen, and compared to pretty much what's in camera right away from the volume is probably much different. Probably still hard work though.
Yeah, I imagine it's even created more challenges on their timelines to produce the assets that go into pre-production is probably more stressful now for VFX teams.
Yeah, and they have far less time because we're shooting.
So when you're traveling, do you travel with like an emergency kit of things just in case you do recording, or are you at this point?
No,
it's pretty charted what you're working on.
Yeah, no, I don't really. I travel with a blue. Is it here? No, I don't have it in this room, but I travel with like a blue snowball mic that you just plug into a Mac. I do that because I'd rather, if I have to audition, I don't want to audition on my phone or whatever if they're looking for me. But I know of actors who do those. I don't do a lot of these, but who do those promos, like tonight on ABC, and they do those weekly. So they need to be available at all times. So I've been with actors who are at a Comic-Con or something and go, I got to go up to my hotel room and build a fort and make sure I can get these these sounds in as quick as possible.
It's always impressive to me. Like sometimes we're on the conference trail showing our products at shows, and we've had actors come up to us and say, "Hey, I actually have to do something right now. Can I use your setup here? Can I use your mic? Can I source connect in?" And I'm like, "Sure, it's a live demo. It works for us." But it's amazing how much the opportunity, and the opportunity strikes. You gotta capitalize on it. So,
well, I mean, this booth that I bought from a company called LA Vocal Booths.
Mm-hmm.
I got it because of COVID and things like Source Connect and stuff. And it just saved my, I know all my friends during COVID who were on-camera actors were all terrified. They were all running out of money. And I was fortunate enough that I saw a lot of us talked about it and we saw what was coming. And we said, we need to work from home.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't do it in our closet. It's not going to sound good. So we have to figure out what mics we need, what sound we need, we need everything. We got to build it all. And a lot of us did, and it saved. Man, I remember Ubisoft giving me a job in the middle of COVID when everything stopped for Phoenix Rising.
Right.
And I was like, oh, thank God, man! They paid everything that I was. It was hard work.
Yeah.
But it was it paid for everything that I was losing during COVID. It was a really stressful time, but it got me this booth because I needed it.
And lifeline.
Yeah.
So was that project kind of done almost entirely remotely?
Well, so that was one of those interesting COVID projects because that was the one where I went up to Montreal to mocap, to performance capture a bunch of it, and we did a bunch of it. Then they were doing some rewrites. And then COVID hit, and then they were like, well, we can't bring anybody back to finish these scenes. Especially at the beginning of COVID, they didn't know. And getting actors they had cast from the States to Canada was like a nightmare.
Yeah.
So, and then at one point they had asked me, do you want to come? Yeah, I think I remember this happening. Do you want to come to Montreal? We have to put you in a hotel for 2 weeks. You can't leave. We'll pay for the hotel, but we're not going to pay you for those 2 weeks you're there. Obviously they couldn't, right?
Yeah.
They're like, we can't pay this guy for not doing anything.
Right.
So they're like, do you want to do that? And then we could test you and then we could do the mocap. I'm like, oh my God, can we just do this from somewhere? And then I think they stopped doing all of that. And they just said, everybody just do it remotely.
Yeah.
And companies too, everybody. I mean, you know this, they all were starting to figure out a way for all of us to do everything without having to leave our house. And it worked out for the most part. I'm sure if COVID didn't happen, I would have gone up to Montreal to do more performance capture for that game. Mm-hmm. But as it turned out, we just turned everything into a vocal thing. The same thing with Gotham Knights. Gotham Knights was going to be a full performance capture thing, and then they're like, we can't bring you up here. So they had somebody else do the body, and then I just matched to his movements.
Interesting. Do you remember what your first remote gig was?
Like fully remote gig.
Or I guess real-time remote, because there's always been this kind of file-based remote thing where you can just send us the thing and
that happens. That still happens. No, I don't. I mean, I guess that would be the first time I did a full game, if you don't count the performance capture before the COVID. Mm-hmm. I would think Phoenix Rising was the first time I did everything in that game from my booth. Right. Yeah, and then it started changing. Like even Star Trek, all the ADR I did from here. Right. Yeah, so they just sent me what I did, and they just sent me what they needed, and I gave them 20 takes. I'm like, here you go, just take that, go with it. Yeah.
What's it like working with are you bouncing off other actors from everyone's in their booth? No.
When I first started directing, it actually was a little different. It was. It got difficult at times because everybody has a different booth. So you have to figure out how to get, and different mics, right? Right. So you got to figure out how to get the same sound off of everybody so the game doesn't sound very odd. And there were times, man, where we were directing and an actor would start and then one actor was like, why? I was like, do you live at the airport? like every 5 seconds there was a plane flying over and you're like, okay, we got to wait. And then we try to get it in and then another plane. no matter what, you can't get it like fully, unless you're a pro sound company. You can't. Even this, like this is a great booth, but if my kids are out here playing, we're not going to hear them.
Yeah.
Like
It's not perfect, but it's
yeah. And I remember one that we were doing, and the actress had it in her apartment, but the shower above her and her neighbor would go on, and then we would hear it.
Right.
And then we would have to wait. And at one point, we're like, "How long is this show?"
Yeah, she's really enjoying that.
Yeah. So like those type of things were very difficult. So we usually would like actors to come in, unless they obviously don't live in LA or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I prefer when people are in. It's just easier. It's just less problems, fewer problems.
Sure. There's more human interaction. I mean, I think that's a big thing of what we're constantly trying to bring to the table is making, I think it's understandable the file-based workflow is a thing. But I think that the more we can do together and bounce off each other and have that sort of human connection.
That makes me think of, so there's this show that I'm on Netflix called Blood of Zeus, which is an animated series. It's a great show. Next season is May 8th, actually. It's really good.
Cool.
It's like a Greek god kind of anime by the guys who did Great. It's really, really cool. So we've been doing it for years. But the first year that we did it was pre-COVID. So we all had all the actors come in for the most part. And we were bouncing off each other. And it's a very emotionally dramatic show. And we're, reading off each other. It's great. And I'm meeting everybody. And then the last 2 seasons have been just me here, just doing it by myself, reading with the casting director. Because it happened in COVID. So that second season happened in COVID. We had no choice. And then by the time we got to the third season, I think companies were like, why am I paying for studio time? Like, get everybody to come in and just do it from home. And it's really happening with on camera, which is really bothering me.
I think it's happening across the board. I mean, we often hear studio owners and stuff say, like, I can't buy enough lunch now to get people to come in. But
for me, the auditions now, like, I don't mind the first audition being on tape because whatever, and it gives more actors more opportunities because they're sending tapes. But I had like a callback that they didn't want to buy. Just like a couple weeks ago, they had a callback. They didn't want to buy studio time to bring in the 20 actors. They had a callback, so we had to do it all over Zoom. Like the Zoom is cutting out. I'm reading with nobody. I'm in my house, and you're like, how is this conducive to a good performance? It's the worst thing. And COVID changed it because it made people realize, well, we don't need to pay for this studio time. We don't need to rent out a place to bring actors in all day and pay the casting director and a reader and all that kind of stuff. We'll just do it from home. And then it sucks because it really, really, in my opinion, it really just takes away any sort of ability to achieve what you want to achieve when you actually get the job. And that's what callbacks are for, to be as close as you can for the role. And I'm reading with it. Like I did one the other day for one of the, I don't remember, one of the NCIS, Law and Order, one of those shows. And I was doing it, and all I saw was the reader on a little screen. But I couldn't look at the screen because that would kind of make me look at the camera. So I didn't have anybody to read with.
Right.
So I'm reading with nobody in my office here, reading with nobody. I can barely hear him. The Zoom, it's like if I'm too loud, it cuts out.
Yeah.
I'm like, how is this? The timing doesn't work. It's really, really annoying.
It's interesting because like we build a lot of different tools. I think most people often associate us with Source Connect, but we have all of these solutions to try and rebuild the studio environment. But there are so many headwinds that, and I understand why they are a certain way. If I look at something like the commercial industry, there's like, okay, the agency has laptops that they have to pull from a locker that have whitelisted applications that they need to use. And they're like, okay, Zoom works. Let's just do Zoom for everything. And it's like, it falls short when you think about these professional pipelines. And then when I think of something all the way up to like, major motion picture production companies, there's sometimes like simplicity just kind of ends up prevailing at the expense of some of those things. And I kind of hope in the future people are a little less intimidated. Like, we have some complex products, some of them are easier to use than others. Stringing it all together so that you're creating that sort of virtual environment where all of those things are met, low latency, group performances, and high quality picture, and high quality audio, dropout free, all this stuff. It takes a lot of work, and sometimes it's a little daunting to see when you're looking at some of the biggest fish out there, and they're like, "Nah, just do it on Teams or something." Or
no, that happens a lot. Yeah. There's very many where like I'm doing this over. And every program has its own kind of ups and downs.
Like, for sure. Yeah,
definitely. Things even on. I'll tell you a quick story about directing that was really funny. Just the last week, I was directing Marathon, and I was trying to. We're doing it over Zoom, and I'm trying to get the actors to make a death sound, like a sound of dying. So I'm trying to say, okay, do it. Like, I don't really ever say do it like this, but when it comes to like a death sound, I'm like, try this. Like, what I'm looking for is something like, and every time I would do it, the sound would cut out.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's not used to somebody going,
yeah. It's like, that's a noise. I'm trying to get rid of it.
Yeah. And so, exactly. So the program thinks it has to get rid of that noise. And the actor on the other side is going, I can't, you didn't do anything. I'm like, no, I did. I'm making noise. And then I'm trying to figure out how to like whisper it so it comes across. Yeah. And then I'm like calling people on the phone, like, make them do it like this. Right. So that's one of the examples of what you're saying, like just trying to fix this technology. Not fix, the technology is amazing. We're trying to like add these fixes to them.
Definitely. Well, I think I feel like I think it's kind of profound that, like, pre-pandemic, if somebody accidentally hit the FaceTime video button and called me, I'd be like, ew, what are you doing? Gross. You want to do a video call? Like, I was so like shy about being on camera, and then the pandemic kind of like really flipped everything on its head. Now I feel like it's probably the norm. Most people are kind of used to. I mean, as a performer, you're used to being on camera and probably had to bite that bullet early on. But I just think it's really interesting now that I'm at the point where I prefer to get into a video meeting with somebody. I don't really want to text with them. I don't really want to have I gotta do whatever. There's ups and downs to all of it, and there's times for all of it. But I definitely value looking someone face to face and having a real, like, as much as I can, and I think it's incredible that we're on two sides of a continent and able to have this kind of experience. But
I was thinking about that. I mean, everybody's thought about this at one point, but imagine we went through COVID without this. Yeah. Without the ability to do, relationships would have fallen apart, and families would have been fractured
and all that. Yeah. I mean, we learned a lot through COVID. A lot of it we had already kind of understood some of the problems and challenges and had been working on, but it really helped us, I think, prioritize for Source Connect 4 and beyond what things really improve the quality of these types of productions and what people really need. And we have a list 10 miles long of things that people want, and every industry needs something a little different.
It would be great to the point where, like, when we call an actor and bring them in, we still have the actor record the performance on their own as a backup.
So let me, I don't know if you know about this. I love telling people about this because I didn't know when I was just an engineer and operator, and I would often be like, okay, I'm going to record this actor remotely. Please make sure you're recording a backup because I don't know what's going to happen on the internet. And I had no idea that Source Connect has this built-in solution that does all of this automatically. And it used to be called Queue Manager. And I think a lot of people would just sort of swat it away because it's like, I'm busy and I don't have time to prepare and this is what I know. And now in Source Connect 4, it's called Restore Replace. And it's basically everything that the performer is doing is being cached in their folder on their local side. And everything that's being recorded on the engineer's side is being recorded into the media bin of something like Pro Tools or whatever the platform is. And anything that happens between over the internet, if there's dropouts like this, and it measures point A and point B and says, hey, I'm missing this. By the time you cut the file, it's analyzed where those exist and fill it in. And then there's one step further to that where you can click on it and hit replace, and it'll go and suck all of the PCM audio full bit for bit from the talent side right into your timeline. So you could be comping, like, in a voice session where you say you're doing price points on something, and then you end up with a Frankenstein, take 1, take 5, 7, 9, all of those is comped together. I don't actually want to rebuild that edit that a client has already approved 2 hours later when I get a zip file of waves from WeTransfer, all poorly labeled, different start times and everything I have, and I got to go and hunt through it. I don't have time. I might be in another session already.
Yeah, of course.
So this, I don't think a lot of people understood or even to this day understand that's the fundamental difference of what Source Connect is bringing to the table, amongst others. But I think that one
we
really
certainly don't. I'm not an engineer. I work with a whole bunch of companies that obviously you have their own engineers, and I've never. If Source Connect gets jarbled, we have to redo it.
Yeah, you just go. It's tech error. You don't need to.
I didn't even hear it. No, we got to do it again. Like, what's great about that though, Ross, is that I can think of many times recently where I'm like, damn it! Like, I wish that Source Connect, that take was the Source Connect didn't screw up, because that's the good take. Yeah. Or the connection didn't screw up. And if that's the case where we can still use those takes, that's amazing.
You could come back 20 days later and it'll be there.
That's great.
As long as you don't wipe that cache, and it's we're talking about audio. It's relatively small, and I think most modern machines have enough space to not be concerned about this. But it's definitely, it's really, and honestly, sometimes the backup recording solution ends up creating problems for the primary solution, which is like, oh, now you're doing this in GarageBand or Adobe Audition, and it's running at 44.1, and I see the stress it puts on them too, right? Where they're already inheriting enough technical worries with remote stuff, and now there's this like, what do you mean the sample? I'm getting clicking, popping as the engineer. You must be doing some sample rate thing on your side, and they're like, what's that? So
back in COVID days, I remember when if the actor was running their Source Connect and then started recording on their own Pro Tools, one of them would kick off. Yeah. And we were like, oh, we got to start this whole thing over again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so Source Connect 4 was rebuilt from the ground up, definitely understanding a lot of the pain points that people have had. And there's been advances in the world that have allowed us to streamline how it all works. So it's definitely an exciting chapter. I mean, I think we're at a spot now where we do what we're known for really well, and what's exciting is we've got a foundation now that we can do a lot of things that maybe people have never known that we were interested in doing, and it's going to all start trickling down into Source Connect. So very exciting. I know that it's probably. I mean, I just think about what's going on in the studio. How much we take for granted in person is like, okay, I've got stakeholders in the room with me at a console, and then talents in a glass area, isolated, sound treated, and sometimes you need people are eating lunch behind you and making noise and talking in the middle of someone's take, and you try and get people in these virtual meeting spaces, and all of that falls apart, and don't mute themselves, and so we're trying to, with Nexus. There's Nexus Suite includes a lot of really, really cool stuff. I won't geek out on this too much because I can elaborate on it later, and I've already kind of touched on it in a previous conversation that we're going to air here. But it's really, that's the goal between Nexus and Source Connect, is to have them sort of operate as the control room and the ISO booth. And Source Connect is really the ISO booth, and what do you need in an ISO booth in the 21st century in a control room. And so when they come together, it's really magical, and I think that's my fight for the years to come, is to educate people.
Nowadays, it's especially with very little. All the actors are in LA, but all of the companies, for the most part, are in Washington, Georgia, like
all over the place. Yeah.
So there's a lot of
Edmonton,
producers, writers, or in Canada, there's a lot of producers, writers, and stuff that have to come in, and it's one thing. We're on the Zoom for them, but we're on the Source Connect for the actors, and so it's all a big the more you can streamline it, the better, right?
Yeah. What do you think's next for production Like I think the elephant in the room on a lot of people's minds is AI. I'm kind of curious if you do you see it as a threat and an aid, or
I don't. Some actors, and this is why there's a video game strike on for some companies,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of actors are very, very, very scared
Mm-hmm.
of AI. I'm not that scared of it, but also that's kind of selfish of me because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not scared of it personally. But I understand because look, there are things I can do that AI is never going to be able to do. You're never going to be able to get a real performance. You're never going to be able to get a real you'll be able to get good performances,
Mm-hmm.
not even good ones, but they're never going to be based on actual people. And I'm already established, so nobody's going to replace me anytime soon. I do worry slightly about one of the reasons we're striking is they want to be, a lot of game companies want to, any company wants to be able to say, well, we got you for X amount of time in the game. We want to add, let's say, a DLC or something, but we don't
Mm-hmm.
want to pay you, so we're going to simulate your voice because we already have you in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll pay you a little bit, but it's not going to be what you would make if you would actually come in and do it. And there's that kind of things that a little worried. But I honestly feel that if a game company were to do that to me, it would not go down well in the public eye. And not just to
I
me,
think so too.
to anybody. It's like, look, guys, they're not even paying me. They're replacing my voice for the rest of this game. Then they would not sit well with a lot of people. So, and on top of that, I don't think they really want to do that. Most devs, maybe the big higher ups are like, let's save money. But most devs are artists too, and they want to make the best possible performance. What I do worry about with AI, but again, this is the part that's selfish, is it's not for me. It's for newer actors, because when I was coming up, the way I met casting directors and the way I would get into rooms and stuff would be, well, I'd come in to do a Call of Duty background guy,
Mm-hmm.
Just yelling grenade or get down,
Right,
or to your left, to your right, like those type of things. And that's how you would meet casting directors, and then that's how you would get to meet, audio directors and game directors and engineers and studios, and that's all in 5 years. Like, who's going to hire an actor to yell grenade in the background anymore? You know what I mean? They'll just
absolutely. It's the bottom falls out before the top.
So I get where the technology is, and I get that kind of stuff is going to go away. And it's really rough for actors who do a lot of dubbing to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of actors do a lot of dubbing to make a living. Dubbing is into English, but that's all going to go away because it's almost the point where they just take the actor's voice who's speaking French or whatever, they put it through a program, and then it turns into English.
Yeah.
And they throw that on there, right? Like, those things are happening, and we have to accept that those things are happening. But full-on performance from an actor, especially on camera, that's never going to be replaced. But even in voiceover, people can tell. You can always tell. And people want connection, and you can't connect to a computer.
I mean, I completely agree. Like, the one thing I'm
just changing my mic. Keep talking.
Yeah, this interview I was in yesterday, I kind of just stumbled on this feeling suddenly, and it hit me like a wave. Is like, there's not a scenario in the world where I'd be wanting to have this conversation with an AI version of you.
Okay.
Like, there's no way. Like, it wouldn't be exciting. I don't think anyone watching would find that exciting. I don't think I would, as someone who's curious, would find it exciting. It would literally only be able to articulate things that you have already expressed previously. And I think that the thing that we love probably all the way through the creative process is stumbling on something that we've never found before. It's the pioneering that get me into the new frontier of that. And I think that's
AI is never going to there's two things that AI is going to lack. They're never going to have connection.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people want the reason there's even movie stars is because they want the connection with people. The reason I can go to a con and get a lineup and people want my autograph, it's not me. It's they connected with the character who is a real person, and they want to connect with that person. That's never gonna. AI can never do that.
No.
you're never going to have you're going to lack connection. And that's really what connecting in art, what art is all about, is connection. And then the other thing is AI is never going to be original. Like you're not going to get an AI Denzel Washington. You're not going to get AI Meryl Streep. It's not going to happen. You're not going to find these amazing choices and original, heartfelt performances from a computer. It's just never going to happen. So that's why overall I'm not worried about being replaced, but there are going to be massive changes in the business, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you ever done a remote motion capture? And can you foresee oh, you have?
Yeah.
Wow.
I do in my garage.
What?
Yeah.
How does
they just sent this was like heavy COVID.
Yeah.
They sent a team out, and the team said it was very limited AI, right?
Yeah.
But they sent a team out, and they put on like 4 or 5 cameras, and then we not AI, sorry, I don't know why I said AI.
Yeah.
Very limited
stuff.
mocap. Yeah. Very limited motion capture. Whatever data they got, it was pretty limited. But they did that, and then I'm doing one soon where they're going to send me a kit for facial capture, and I'm just going to do it from here.
Yeah.
And they'll set it up. I have to do all the friggin' setting up and stuff and make sure it's okay. But and then we do it from here. Yeah.
You're going to need a bigger booth.
Yeah, right. But what is changing for sure is now, I was doing a game. I was just an actor in this game, but there was a performance director on the volume on the set.
Yep.
But the producers and the writers were all on computer, and we were like literally, they would follow the camera around. It was great. They had the virtual camera, not a real camera, but it was a virtual camera showing what the kid they were capturing. And 6 or 7 guys in France or wherever they were watching this day of performance capture. So those things are just going to get crazier and crazier, right? Like, I'm not going to fly my team in. Just everybody go to your office, and we'll have the cameras there that exactly what you would see when you were there. And we have the performance director there to guide the actor specifically, but you're going to see everything we're doing. And that's the new way of things, man.
Wow. Is there any particular character that you've done that resonates with you the most, where you feel like you got the most connected with?
It's hard because it's such a cliche to say, but it's like there's something I like about every character I play, even like the terrible ones. Like, because most of the people I play are bad guys for some reason. I really like, and I'm not just saying this because the new season is May 8th, but I really like Seraphim from Blood of Zeus. He's just like a really complex arc of a character that I play in Blood of Zeus. And I like my guy on Star Trek a lot because you know what I liked about Star Trek was that because I play so many bad guys, right? Mm-hmm. And most of the time, somebody else explains the motivation, or I have like one monologue where I'm like, my dad was really mean to me or something like that. Like, that's the motivation. But with Star Trek, they gave me a whole episode.
Right. And
we shot every reason why, like we showed the audience why he was doing what he was doing. And I got to actually, play it, and that was great. So I do like that character a lot. But I like them all, man. There's always something I like about. There are very few. I look at it the other way. There are very few where I'm like, I'm even like friggin' care. There are a couple. I'll be honest with you. There are a couple where you're like, I'm just doing this for money. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to say which one specifically, but I can tell you that like there are bad guys that I've played on these like procedural shows. Yeah. Where you could literally take my character from this show and put him in the show.
Teleport him over there.
They'd be exactly the same because they're written the same.
Yeah.
And so those ones, it's like, it's through the motions. You go. But I'm a pro, so I'm always going to be good. And I'm always going to give it my all when I'm there. But when I leave, I'm like, I'm done with that. Like, I know some of them I don't even watch. But I most definitely give it my all at all times, to be fair. Yeah.
How do you still get into the occasional like 30-second commercial kind of stuff and
I'm not on camera. I don't do on camera commercial stuff ever. I never was really, that was never really my jam. I still do voiceover commercials. Yeah. Man, I'll tell you, the industry's changed so much though that a lot of them are going non-union.
Mm-hmm.
So it's becoming like not worth your time to put in. Like I'll make more for a day of directing than I would for
Right.
like a big commercial campaign or something. But there's still like the big ones, the car commercials, things like that. You want to get Super Bowl commercials. Well, she's going to get residuals forever, or you're going to get a big payday because it goes to 50 states.
Yeah.
Although I got one thing, man. When I was living in Toronto, I was the voice of Lexus cars.
That's when I met you, actually.
Yeah.
I remember the casting director really pulling for you too.
Oh, cool.
It was an interesting, because I was that fairly early on in your VO career?
Yeah, relatively. I had done a bunch of pretty popular games at that point, but I wasn't where I am now, obviously, clearly.
Right, but in terms of like being like a brand voice at that point for commercials, was that maybe one of the
was one of the first.
I kind of remember there being like a dialogue around that, and it just kind of the reason I dwell on it is because I was talking with somebody else about this too, and it was just like how much a casting director or voice director can really shape the future of people that they work with, and just in general, like take a chance on it. Where I feel like, sometimes like this idea, maybe like going direct to client with 10,000 different voice takes or different voice actors, all file based, and just like clicking next, like they're going through a bunch of drum samples trying to find the best snare drum. And it's like, no, you need to shape this song that you're trying to make, and the snare drum is probably going to be pretty
very interesting, because I have been most recently getting into casting a lot, within the work that I'm doing for games as a director. They're starting to come to me with the callbacks. These are the 5 guys we want. Pick a guy, pick one or two. And so I started listening, and I think of it that way, maybe because I'm an actor by trade, right? So I think of it, I'm like, well, I listen to it and I go, how can I mold this? How can we, I usually say, like, how can we all mold this great actor into the character? As opposed to, no, not good for the voice. No, not good for the voice. No, like that. You know what I mean? Like you're saying. So if that's what they were doing with Lexus, that's great. Where they were like, we need to.
Well, I mean, I just remember her tying it down to so much more than just your voice. She was like, no, I think he's fresh. I think he's got this timbre to him that shows this kind of gruff side of the car. But it's elegant, it's sophisticated. Like, she was able to kind of pick up on all these things that I see in your personality.
Great.
And literally like express that to the client and the agency in a way where they're like, that's our voice. That's our voice. And then I was like,
yeah, you most definitely need people to fight for you as an actor at all times. And I do bring that in myself to casting.
Right.
We had a callback session last week for some stuff, and I remember saying like, no, this guy, like, I know most of the actors at this point, like we're all friends. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh yeah, he's, trust me. And they're like, yeah, do you think he can get younger, or do you think he can? I'm like, I can guarantee you I can get what we need from him. And he brings this and this and this, like you were saying. Mm-hmm. And like the other actors don't. Like, it's great. That's the fun stuff about casting. And being an actor, it's great to hear that stuff. The only difference is, I got to tell you, my buddy Maurice LaMarche, who's also Canadian, nice. But he lives down here. He's the voice of, you've heard him a billion times. He's the voice of Brain from Pinky and the Brain.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. He does the greatest Orson Welles, and he's on Futurama. He's a fantastic friggin' guy. But he was the voice of Lexus cars in the States.
Right.
And one day we compared paychecks. I should not have done that.
Right.
I mean, I remember sitting there looking at these two things and going, well, this illustrates the difference between Canada and the United States for actors.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not exaggerating when I say 10 times.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's 10 times the population, but I can imagine that it's even possibly more than 10x in the back end, or if you will, or something like that.
Yeah, the back end especially. It was insane. Where I was like, "Are you kidding?" And they rented him a friggin' Lexus every 3 months.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I don't want to take too much more of your time, although I feel like I could talk to you for hours. But I'm kind of curious, for people that are coming up in this industry, they're probably looking at your career and saying, oh, I hope that's is where I get. And I feel like you've taken some major risks all the way down to moving your family, countries and stuff like that. So do you have any sort of insights on what people should expect and maybe any encouraging tips for someone coming up?
Yeah, man, it's hard. I remember sitting down with my accountant when I getting an accountant when I moved down here, and he looks at me. He's looking at my birth certificate and whatever, and he looks up and he's like, "You moved your whole family down to LA at this age with kids, with this much money in your bank?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I just didn't." And the funny thing was, when he told me that, the pragmatic side of me was like, "Yeah, that was pretty crazy," but I had not even considered it. Like, it was always what I was going to do, if you follow what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, it was always like, I'm going to go down to LA or to New York. I was going to go to one of those two. I came to LA mostly because of the weather. But I was like, I was always going to get my green card. I was always going to move down to the States because that's where the work is. Mm-hmm. It was always that thing. I'm not saying that if a Canadian actor is listening to this, I'm not saying you have to leave Canada. You don't.
Yeah.
But it was always my goal. So the only thing I would say is just set a goal and then stick to your goal.
Right.
And then it gets bad and then it gets great. Like, I'll tell you, like, God's honest truth, man. When I shot Star Trek and I was doing Starfield and stuff, and that was 2023, 2024, it was the best year of my career. And then because of the strike and because of COVID and falling off of COVID and things like that, the following year was the worst year of my career in terms of like money coming in and like what I still had work, thank God, but like comparatively to the year I just had, where you think you want to go like this, and I just kind of did this.
Right.
And you're like, shouldn't I be like a billionaire by now? But you're not. It's never going to happen unless you're like that. You get very fortunate and you hit that one thing that gives you that extra boost. But don't let that dissuade you from your goal, is all I would say.
Yeah.
Like, just keep on your goal. And that's, you know what I want to say though? I always want to say this, Russ, because I always feel like actors give not the most pragmatic advice. And they say things like, believe in yourself and you can do it. But I always like to preface it or maybe wrap this around it, which is like, I know I'm good at this, right? I love hockey. I can't skate. Right. I could train forever. I will never be able to skate backwards. I will never be able to keep up with Mitch Marner. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's never going to happen. No matter how much I train, no matter how many big dreams I have, I can't skate. I love comic books. I can't even draw a circle. I could train forever and I will never be able to do that. So if my dream was to draw comic books, but I'm not good at it, and I didn't do anything else, I would fail.
Right.
Follow what I'm saying?
I definitely do. So
what I like to say to actors is, if you know you're good, if you know you're actually good at this, not if it's just your dream, but you're literally good at it, then never give up. Because it'll happen. Because the cream rises to the top, it really does. But if you're like, I'm okay, just find something else. It's too difficult of a job to.
I think that's excellent insight. I'm kind of. It's funny when I lived in Los Angeles, as I mentioned, for like it's a gray area for how long it was to me because I was moving back and I was back and forth and in different places constantly. And that the one thing that when I was finally settled there hit me is I don't even really need to be here. Because everything's such a long drive away from each other. Like there's people that I was good friends with that were I was in Santa Monica and they're in Glendale and I'd see them twice a year.
Never seen them, yeah.
And I realized that people, when I had moved back to Toronto, still thought I lived in LA. And so it was almost like, I was like, there's probably a way that you could actually live in both of these cities and that everyone in both of those cities would think you live in both these cities.
The only issue becomes you'd have to lie about it and then you'd have to figure out a way to like, I could do most of the jobs that I've been doing this year, let's say. I don't have to be in LA to do them. Right. Most definitely. But in a week or so, I have a performance capture job that's going to take a week. So I would have to fly myself down here without telling anybody.
Yep.
Put myself up, which would cost me a fortune. Also, it's difficult with Canadians and Americans. Like I just got my citizenship, so I could technically do that. Yeah. I could go back and forth, but with the green card, you have to live here.
Yeah, I had a perfect visa for doing that exact thing. So I was in a unique circumstance. But I think I just remember thinking like building relationships is somewhat free, and you can take a bit of a I don't know, sabbatical or something, and go and take a shot down in some of the markets that you want to be in.
Oh, for sure.
Put yourself out there, and
it doesn't really matter anymore. The only thing I would say that if I leave LA, I won't go far enough that I can't drive in. Like I might leave California because the taxes are crazy, but I would just go to Arizona,
right?
Or I would go to Nevada.
Yeah,
I'd go somewhere like close by because like last week, bro, the week before, I went to John Carpenter's Walk of Fame ceremony. Yeah. Because I'd known John and Sandy for a while. And I'm standing there and I'm like, at this Walk of Fame ceremony, I'm sitting next to Kurt Russell and Keith David. And it's like, if I wasn't here, I wouldn't
be in that opportunity. Yeah.
So those type of things, you're always like, man, I'm glad I'm here. And whether it's true or not anymore, these industry parties are starting to come back. So you're starting, not that I like parties, I hate them, but going there and meeting people is
networking's pretty important.
Networking's still pretty big. And you will always feel kind of outside of it if you're not in one of these big cities. Being in Toronto is good. Being in Vancouver is good. LA and New York, those four. If you're not in one of those four, you will feel like an outsider.
Right.
You can't help it. Just when I was living in Montreal, I felt like I got to move to Toronto or Vancouver.
Right.
And then when I was in Toronto, I was like, I got to move to LA.
Did you have any sort of mentor that helped you find your way through this industry early on?
I've had many. None that have been, this is my guy or woman. Like, I've had a lot of help in the VO side from people that have become friends. The VO people down here are great. People that actors that have worked forever. Like you talk to Troy Baker.
Yeah.
Troy's great. If I need some advice or something, I'll call Troy. And we were just joking around together just a couple of days ago we were at the SAG strike meeting.
Right.
Guys like him and Roger Craig Smith and Liam O'Brien are just guys that I could call and just be like, I need to know about this casting director or things like that. And they're all always free. Or Jennifer Hale, who's also Canadian. Mm-hmm. She helped me a lot. Sissy Jones, Maurice LaMarche, whom I mentioned. And on the on-camera side, it's Michael Ironside helped me a lot.
Amazing, yeah.
Because he was a cool mentor to me. Keith David helped me a lot. But I don't have one particular. I want to be a mentee.
Yeah.
But I don't really. I think I'm past that age now. I think I'm
right. Yeah, you seem to be doing that for other people now.
Yeah,
you be a mentor for others.
But I always would I always want people to. To every actor needs a helping hand, like you were saying. You need that person to go, this is your guy, and then explain why. Very quickly in Toronto, there's a casting director named Lisa Parison. She cast Star Trek.
Right.
And you just appreciate people that battle for you. But she always battles for me. If I'm right for the role, if I'm not right for the role, I always know that she's like, well, Elias would be good. So it's people like that are who I really look up to. People that fight for you, like you were saying.
See you for you.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, honestly, it's been such a treat chatting with you, and I'll let you go. I know you've got a busy day ahead of you, so
I just got to direct some Fortnite now.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah, that'll be easy.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, Ross. Appreciate it, man.
Cheers. Take care.